Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for making this session today. It's going to be a really interesting conversation about two very effective and challenging projects, in the sense that, having done some collaborative large-scale projects myself, I know how challenging they are. And I'm sure that's what's brought you here today, to hear some tips from those who have come through this, have done it with great success, and can hopefully share some of their tips. Hello, I'm Mandy Charman. I'm the manager of the Outcome Practice and Evidence Network, which is in the Centre for Excellence in Child and Family Services. So reach out if you have any evidence needs or want to know anything more about Open. I'm so pleased we can be here today. Firstly, we want to do acknowledgement of country, of course. The Centre respectfully acknowledges Victorian traditional owners and custodians of the lands and waterways where we live and work, and recognise that our work is delivered on many lands across the Kulin Nation, somewhere on the wonderful Wurundjeri lands. We are proud that First Nations cultures continue to enrich the lives of us all through the sharing of values, places, resources and stories. We pay our respects to ancestors of this country, elders, knowledge holders and leaders, past, present and future. We acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Thank you so much for making the time in your busy schedule, because I know everyone's schedule is very busy for this session. First, a little bit of housekeeping. The session will include two presentations with time after each for some conversation with our presenters about their specific experience. And then hopefully at the end we'll have a little bit of broader ranging comments from both our presenters about challenges related to collaborative practice, successes and the exciting achievements they've driven in their own areas. Please make sure you're muted. And of course, it's your choice whether you have your camera on or not. If you do feel comfortable, presenters, it's always lovely for presenters to see faces along the screen and know who they're talking to. This session is being recorded though, so just so you're aware of that. Also, make sure your name is correct and include your location if you can, because that's another way of making this sort of more like a real face-to-face experience. Throughout the presentations, put your questions in the chat. And at the end of the presentation, we will collate those and put those back to our speakers to respond to. So feel free to put in any thoughts or considerations, because once again, speakers love having questions and reflections on their work. You can also talk to each other via the chat, or myself or Sarah. Sarah is our tech whiz today, and if you have any issues with the online session, please just reach out to her. Okay, now on to the main deal. Today we have two great sessions on collaborative approaches to deliver best outcomes for children and families. These presentations will talk us through their different collaborative journeys and their different frameworks and models they've used in delivering their innovative programs. First, we have City of Yarra Council and Relationships Australia sharing their collaborative journey of the Yarra Communities That Care initiative. Then we'll have City of Merri-bek, formerly Moreland, and I'm just saying that Merri-bek people because while you do your changeover, I imagine you're going to have to say that bit, and Mary Health sharing their work with the Ready, Set, Prep and School Ties program, which has used a collective impact approach to improving educational and wellbeing outcomes for children. Okay, so firstly, a collaborative approach to strengthening family relationships in the City of Yarra. I'd like to introduce Sandra Obokul, who is the Manager, Evaluation and Social Impact at Relationships Australia. Welcome, Sandra. Sandra conducts program-specific evaluations across the sector and is skilled in developing program logics, theory of changes, and practical outcome measurement frameworks. Is passionate about demonstrating social impact, improving client outcomes. Bella Ladlaw, Yarra Communities That Care Program Leader at the Yarra City Council. Bella facilitates a collaboration of over 30 partner organisations and community groups working together to improve the health development of middle years young people aged 18 to 14 in Yarra. Bella oversees action planning, delivery, fidelity, evaluation and the systems change work of the Yarra Communities That Care Partnership. And finally, Naomi Gilbert, Community Liaison Officer, Relationships Australia. As part of Yarra Communities That Care, Naomi coordinates a network of more than 20 practitioners from 10 partner agencies in the collaborative delivery of tuning into teams. Welcome you all, and we'd love to hear what you've got to say.
Wonderful. All right, well, I'll start. I'm Bella Laidlaw. I'm going to also start with an acknowledgement of country. Naomi, did you want to share our slides? Perfect. Great, thank you. So I'm from Yarra City Council. Yarra City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people as traditional owners and true sovereigns on the land now known as Yarra. We also acknowledge the significant contributions made by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to the life in Yarra. We pay our respects to elders from all nations and to their elders past, present and future. I ask you all to also take a moment to consider the traditional owners of the land where you're sitting right now, as we're all spread in different places. So I'm Bella Laidlaw. As I've been introduced, I'm the Yarra Communities That Care Program Leader at the City of Yarra. And I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to present today with two of my colleagues from Relationships Australia Victoria, Naomi Gilbert and Sandra Opoku. We've been invited today to share with you information about Yarra Communities That Care, which is a collaboration of local schools, community partners, who are all shared in our commitment to supporting the healthy development of 8 to 14-year-olds in the City of Yarra. So we've got, over 30 partner organisations involved, and we've been operating since 2014. And in that time, we've successfully implemented a wide range of actions. But really today, we're going to drill down and focus on the really wide-reaching collaborative work that we've been undertaking since 2017 to strengthen family relationships for families of 8 to 14-year-olds in the City of Yarra. I'm going to start the presentation. I'm going to give you a really quick overview of Yarra Communities That Care, so that you can get a sense of how we've organised ourselves as an effective collaboration of all of the partner organisations, as well as processes we've used to gain a deep understanding of our community and agree on priority areas for us to focus on. I'm then going to hand to Naomi, and she's going to share the journey and evolution of the work that Yarra Communities That Care has been doing since 2017 to strengthen family relationships, which is one of our current priority areas. And finally, Sandra and her team have begun an evaluation to explore the systems change and flow-on effect that's occurring as a result of our collaborative approach from Yarra Communities That Care, with a particular focus on our strengthening family relationships work over the last 5 years. So Sandra, we're really excited, is going to talk to you about the evaluation approach being used and share some of the early findings as part of our commitment to document and share wider learnings with community and government. All right, so I can't start without just putting up a slide of all of our partners involved. So, we're really lucky that there's lots of partners involved in Yarra Communities That Care. We have founding partners in Neighbourhood Justice Centre and City of Yarra, and Relationships Australia Victoria are the backbone organisation of the work that we're talking about today. I've particularly then listed in bold all of the organisations who are involved in the work that we're talking about today, which is, as you can see, quite a lot of them. So when Naomi and Sandra talk about partner organisations, that's who they're talking about. And it's really important and pleasing to kind of share and see their names up on the screen. All right, so what is Yarra Communities That Care? All right, so, Yarra's Communities That Care is really, we have a shared vision, which is to enhance the healthy development of middle years young children, young people and their families through evidence-based collaboration, planning, action and evaluation. We have a focus on middle years. By that, we're defining 8 to 14-year-olds. And we really know that it is impossible to shift any major outcomes unless we're also talking about collaborative success. So that's why, we also pair always our vision with the statement around collaborative success being really achieving something as a group that wouldn't be possible to achieve as individuals. Okay, so This is a really quick overview of the Communities That Care process. So the background towards this is that in 2014, a group of local champions came together to kickstart Yarra Communities That Care. And really, after careful consideration, they looked at a range of different frameworks that they could use. They chose to use the Communities That Care framework. And the reason it was selected is because it's community-led, community-wide, so it has a place focus and it has a strong focus on collaboration. It's about prevention, so it's really about trying to shift risk and protective factors before they become an issue. It's about having really evidence-informed planning and delivery, and it also, a key part of the framework is having a high quality survey tool with comparative samples so that you can get a good sense of what's going on in your community. In addition, it was chosen because a number of studies have shown it to be an effective framework that's been used in other communities. So when I'm looking at this framework, I'm not going to go through it all today. I just really want to zoom in on two aspects. One is the getting organised so that we can let you know how we've organised all of our partners together. And the other one is creating a plan. And that's going to let you know how that we landed, or the process we went through to land on strengthening family relationships as one of our priority areas. Next one, please, Naomi. Perfect. All right, so this is the current Yarra Communities That Care governance structure. This governance structure is unique to the needs of Yarra Communities That Care in 2013, so it's not going to be necessarily the right model for other communities, but I put it up because there's a few things that I think is important. You need to have a really clear, when working in collaboration, a clear governance structure for your collaboration, and you need to have a respectful way of working together. And what we've learned really about setting up a governance structure is the following things. So it's really important to have a shared vision for which you're all coming around. It's extremely important to have a backbone organisation. To me, that's a non-negotiable, with a dedicated role, the right expertise to drive the collaboration. And we're lucky to have Yarra City Council and Neighbourhood Justice Centre who provide the, location and support to enable that to happen. You then need to have key leaders. So these are really senior members of partner organisations who are involved to champion and provide strategic direction. They also can link you into wider resourcing opportunities. They provide support for staff members in their organisations to be actively involved. And they are also aware of what the current policy agendas are and settings so that they can provide some great guidance on that front. Then I moved to the core of the collaboration, which is the community board, being made up of, it's individuals from partner organisations who have experience of working in the community. It's really important that they know the community well and they're committed to your shared vision. And for us, we call this our community board. They meet regularly and provide the engine room for our planning and actions. From the community board, you then get flow-on effects of working groups, and this doesn't necessarily just have to have community board members. So it's really important to have the capacity to set up working groups and to make sure you're very clear that they're about drawing expertise and you're assigning power to the individuals and organisations in that group who are best placed to lead the collaborative action delivery. This is not about one organisation having overall control. It's about making sure that we maximise the expertise and skill sets of all of the organisations and individuals in the collaboration. And I have circled for you the Strengthening Family Relationships working group to give you a sense of the governance structure behind the piece of work that Naomi is leading as the backbone support for the Strengthening Family Relationships when she talks about it to you further. Finally, when you're thinking about your governance, I would also suggest that it's important to have mechanisms to ensure genuine partnership with young people, schools and parents. And we pretty early on recognised that the best fit for these partners to truly be involved was not by attending formal governance meetings. So we really make sure that we're embedding plenty of opportunity for consultation, co-design, and involvement in delivery in these for those individuals. So that's the governance, which is important. But the other part that it's really extremely important to get right is, you know, to be able to have a commitment to a modelling of a respectful way of working together. You know, and if you don't have that, it's really difficult to sustain and undertake effective interagency and collaboration work. So at the start of our journey, all of the Communities That Care partners came together to create what we call our collaboration agreement. And this sets out, you know, how we as organisations and individuals will work together to achieve our shared vision. And it started to lay the foundations for setting up a really positive culture of collaboration to drive our work, which is very much part of the way we work and work together whenever we meet or anything that we do together. We've got a really lovely culture that's stemmed from that piece of work. All right. So this is really the process, this slide, of how we created our 2022 to 25 Yarra Communities That Care Action Plan. And I want to pause for a second to thank Kim Furman from Neighbourhood Justice Centre for the amazing creation of this one pager for us. I am going to again just zoom into a couple of aspects of this this plan and particularly the understanding community needs and the essential bits around the outcome areas. So basically what we did is we, you know, when we're talking about, you know, why do we want to focus on strengthening family relationships, you know, it was really important for us as a collaboration to first, before we decided on what we were going to focus on, understand what our community needed. And this is essential for any collaboration. And you really need to get really good quality information and take your time before deciding which direction you'll take and bring people along on that journey with you. So in 2019, we collected surveys from 1,072 young people across Yarra in year 6, 8 and 10s. And the survey tool is a really good quality tool. It's been shown in multiple longitude studies to have reliable predictive factors of a range of health and adolescent social problems. It measures risk and protective factors as well as some behaviours. So we knew by the breadth of how wide the survey was delivered as well as, you know, by what was being collected, that we were getting good quality data. Then, of course, in 2020, COVID arrived. So our process for unpacking the survey findings needed to also take in real-time data on the impacts of COVID-19 for young people. And we did this by listening to schools and practitioners about the pressures of COVID-19. And we also put findings out and priorities to young people and families. So, and we did that process of getting feedback from families through council, you know, council platforms such as Have Your Say. All right, so next one, please. So following that whole process, we finally landed on outcome areas. And, you know, you can see the 3 outcome areas that we've decided on there. And today we're going to have a particular focus on strengthening family relationships. And this outcome area has actually been continued from our first wave of action planning, which was from 2017 to 21. So we had the opportunity to really build on the great work and momentum and successes from that period into our current action plan, and Naomi will talk to you about that. So the remainder of our presentation is really going to focus on strengthening family relationships. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Naomi, who's going to share the evolution of the work of Yarra Communities That Care's undertaken since 2017 to strengthen family relationships for 18 to 14-year-olds in Yarra. Before I do that, though, I just want to acknowledge the amazing contribution that Naomi and Relationships Australia Victoria have played in driving this work since 2017. So over to you, Naomi.
Thanks, Bella. Hi, everyone. Yes, my name's Naomi. I'm with Relationships Australia Victoria, and I've been part of this work at Yarra Communities That Care since we first started prioritising the delivery of this strengthening family relationships area in 2017. I also want to just acknowledge respectfully that I'm on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people. I pay my respects to elders past and present and just express my real deep gratitude for their ongoing custodianship of country, community and children. So when we're talking about strengthening family relationships, this kind of priority or outcome area, since 2017, I guess the main way we've been addressing this focus area is by delivering an off-the-shelf evidence-based program called Tuning Into Teens. So I just thought maybe you could chuck in the comments there, who's heard of Tuning Into Kids or Tuning Into Teens, the parenting program that's created by Mindful, University of Melbourne? Is anyone delivering it yourselves? Yeah, so we've got some people have heard of it. It's a 6-week small group program. Thanks, everyone. Oh, great. A lot of people have heard of it. Good. So it's a small group program for parents and carers. We're particularly focusing on the Tuning Into Teens program. Oh, great, in Cranbourne. Fantastic. We should connect further. That's great that you're connected to our team there. So small group program, it's for parents and carers of preteens and early teens. So we're really focusing again on those middle years. Parents of year 5 to 8 is really our focus. And the program helps parents to better understand and help their children as they navigate as adolescence and strengthen their relationships with their children and build emotional intelligence and resilience skills. The program's created by Mindful at University of Melbourne, and we've got a really strong connection with the team at Mindful. So we're often in contact with them, chatting about what we're doing. So as you can see from the comments, lots of different people are aware of the program, run the program. There's lots of different organisations that run it in a community setting. A lot of private practitioners, psychologists also run it. So it's well known in Victoria, around Australia and around the world as well. So I guess just to help you understand what we're doing in Yarra, that's a little bit different. Rather than it being one organisation running it from our centre and we ask parents to come to our centre, we actually have facilitators from 10 different partner agencies who are co-delivering the program together. And this means that participants get to build connections with a range of local support services who can each facilitator can then link their participants to other services because of the network of facilitators that we've got. It means that we're also delivering at school locations predominantly. So we've got partnerships with 18 different schools in Yarra where we deliver the program. This means that we're meeting parents on their turf, somewhere that feels relatively comfortable for them. They're not coming into a service. By doing this, we're trying to normalise parenting education, particularly around those kind of teen years, that it's not just for families or parents or of children who are going through tough situations, but this is really helpful experience, a program that's really helpful for parents of all sorts of families. It means that parents can strengthen their connection with their local school. We often find, particularly when we're delivering the program in the high schools to parents of year 7 and 8, they might have been really connected to their child's school community when they're in primary school. Their child enters year 7 and they just feel quite a disconnect because they're not doing drop-offs or they don't know the other parents of the kids, that sort of thing. And so by running the program at the school, we're helping build those connections with the school. And we're also helping parents build strong connections with one another because they're getting to meet other parents. We are also adapting the program for many different culturally and linguistically diverse communities in Yarra. So we're running the program kind of across all the demographics, but also tailoring it to families with different cultural experiences. And also, I guess, if they've come to Australia from a refugee or asylum seeker situation, we're kind of taking that into account as well as we talk about the parenting experience. We've got a focus on the long term, so I think it's really exciting to be able to deliver the Tuning Into Teens program. We're delivering a couple of programs, 2 to 3 programs each term, but we've got plans, for year on year. So we're building up a relationship with the school and saying, is this something we can deliver with your school in term 2 every year so that it becomes part of your kind of community and part of the offerings for your community at your school. So I just wanted to show you a short little clip that we made in 2019. when we evaluated our first cycle of delivery. This will just give you a bit of an understanding of what tuning into teens is and how it's working in Yarra.
As kids and teens grow up, they have to navigate a whole new emotional landscape. This can become difficult when emotions are running high, when you just don't seem to get each other. By recognising and understanding your own and your child's emotions, you can better understand where they're coming from. You help them learn to manage those tricky moments by tuning in.
Children's wellbeing benefits from a really strong, positive relationship with their parents and carers. And the Tuning Into Kids and Tuning Into Teens programs assist the parents to build that strong relationship with their child and build a strong emotional connection.
Through Tuning Into Teens, you will learn, I think, about not only your children's emotions, but you'll learn about your own emotions and your emotional reactions to your children's behaviour. And you'll learn about how you are as a parent and maybe how you might change just a little bit to be the parent that is more responsive to your child's needs.
The biggest change in participating in Tuning In with Teens is getting closer with my daughter due to the fact that she's been through a lot with skipping school. At first, I was very upset at her. I didn't know how to respond to the situation until coming here, meeting the workers here.
We have a long history working with culturally and linguistically diverse families in our community. And so what we've done is we've used that experience to tailor the program so that we can better respond to our families in a more culturally specific and relevant way.
I wish if there is mothers outside there, they know about this group, especially my community. If they know about this, they will handle a lot of stuff, a lot of problems, the teenagers and all this stuff. I wish if they hear about this group and they come, there is a big change will happen to them. For their kid and for themselves, there is a big change.
Developed at the University of Melbourne, these evidence-based programs have shown improvements in parenting, in parent-child relationships, and in children's emotional intelligence and behaviour.
Our evaluations of the program has shown that it is effective in strengthening parents' relationships with their children and increasing their confidence in managing their children's behaviour.
I've learned that in the program, you don't have to be this perfect parent 100% of the time. Always, you know, when you see that bid, always reacting in a calm sort of way. And so you can forgive some error, like you can miss an opportunity every now and again. And your children, I felt like my daughter is more forgiving now if I do try to problem solve, or if I am a little bit dismissive. She understands that she sees me as a whole person now, as like I can see her as a whole person.
With my daughter, instead of screaming at her, I then held back and really put myself in her shoes and how she was thinking, which helped a lot.
I really love that moment where you just see it click for parents, and they sort of go, oh, rather than focusing on behaviour that I don't like, what about if I think about what's my child feeling? What does my child need? And when parents start connecting with that, you just see the impact that it has on the relationship they have with their child.
Yeah. And I refer to that as the aha moment with my families, and we see it in their eyes. It just lights up, and it's such a simple skill because they understand that actually often you don't even have to go to problem solving. You don't need to find solutions for these problems. It's okay to just sit and be silent and listen and be present. And I find we've found that the impacts of that for building connections in families has just been amazing.
The beauty of Tuning Into Teens is it's really got one pretty simple aspect to it, and that is actually taking a step back for a split second, just looking at what's going on from their approach. And that's I found that to be extremely powerful. And I thoroughly recommend this for dads to do. Their children look up to their fathers, and if you can be better equipped and have some training, it's not a bad thing.
All right, so we have a space program. Hello. Hello, sorry, my screen has cut off, but I will get that going again. But I guess what, you can hear me okay? Yep. So we had an evidence-based program. We had the data that was showing it was worked, and we're at 2019, we were asking, you know, how are we going to further this reach and I guess deepen our impact with CALD families? So we have started taking on a 3-tiered approach now, seeing that our program delivery of tuning into teens fits actually in a much bigger picture of a 3-tiered approach. Let me see if I can get my screen back up. Sorry about this. There we go. So we're talking about tier 1. We started delivering more, I guess, we're trying to get the tuning into teens messaging out to more people in our tier 1 approach. With widespread emotional literacy messaging for parents. And one of the predominant ways that we've been able to do this is through the running of webinars. As many of you perhaps have done, we've had to quickly pivot to online delivery during COVID, and we use that as an opportunity to think about some additional things that we could do. So we're now delivering 2 or 3 webinars each year, where we're getting sort of 150 to 200 parents come along for a one-off session. Things like unlocking the mysteries of your teenager's brain, taming teen anxiety. We've now started delivering some of these single sessions in person at some of the partner schools. We then have in our tier 2 for parents who are looking for a bit more support. This is where our Tuning into Teens programs fit in. So this is where parents get to commit to a 6-week program. As I said, we're delivering this in collaboration. So since the start of our Cycle 2 delivery, 2022, we've delivered 14 Tuning into Teens programs. So we deliver 2 or 3 per term. A few of those have been tailored particularly for culturally and linguistically diverse communities. And we're starting to build our connections with bicultural workers as liaison officers and as also supporting as co-facilitators. Thanks, Sandra, for sharing. Oh, we dropped out again. In addition to the programs, we also offer a refresher session each term. So this is for parents who have done the program already but want to check back in with the content. So they have the opportunity to come along to one session a term and revisit some of the material, talk about what's happening in their family. As we had one parent say during one of the refresher sessions, this is kind of like peer supervision, but for parenting. And we know that a lot of parents really benefit from reconnecting with one another and revisiting the concepts. And then tier 3, this is where I guess that pointy end, families that are experiencing more kind of challenging things in their families. Because we have a network of providers from 10 local partner agencies, how we're focusing in tier 3 is to support these practitioners to be implementing Tuning into Teens messaging practices in their everyday work with their families and clients. And also because our facilitators from these different agencies are strongly connected through the facilitator network. They're able to better refer their clients, the young people that they're seeing, the parents that they're seeing, they're able to refer them to the other agencies because they have a strong relationship with practitioners in different agencies through this facilitator network. So at the moment, we've got 25 active facilitators from, we're up to 11 partner agencies. I think I said 10 before. We've trained 6 new facilitators in tuning into teens in the past couple of years. We have 9 facilitators who have delivered more than 5 tuning into teens programs. We usually work really strongly with a coordinated approach. So we're pairing a new facilitator with someone that's got a bit more experience so that they can build up their confidence and experience. We do group supervision, and we also run like a networking training session each term so that we can all come together and deepen our knowledge, strengthen our practice, and build our relationships with one another. We partner with 18 schools, primary and secondary schools, and we're working hard to connect more strongly with leadership as well as the wellbeing teams there. So I guess some things that we were noticing, but we hadn't yet evaluated, were the service provider practice change. So that idea that people, our facilitators, are using the Tuning into Teens material and methodology in their everyday practice. For example, we've got a paediatrician from the Royal Children's Hospital who is one of our facilitators. She ran the program for the first time earlier this year, and she's now talking about how she is seeing that when she sees young people, children and young people in her clinic sessions, she's also recognizing the value of spending a lot of time listening to and validating the parent's experience, and sees that that's a really important part to supporting the child. We are seeing greater connection of parents to the service providers. Often I'll have another facilitator from a different organisation. Often it's Yarra Family Services or youth workers calling me to ask about how they can connect to mediation services that Relationships Australia runs. Because we've got a strong connection, they now know how to do a warm referral through me into our service. And we're seeing greater parent-to-parent connections. We had one parent in my group this term described it as, oh, this is just like having a first-time parent group, but for the really challenging teen years. This is what we need, a space where we can listen to each other, support each other. So we were noticing all of these things, but we wanted to know how we could capture and evaluate it. So I'm going to hand over to Sandra now to talk to you about the evaluation that she's leading to explore the systems change and flow and effects that are occurring as a result of this collaborative approach. Thanks, Sandra.
Thank you. So I would just also like to start by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people as the traditional custodians of this land where I meet you from today, and pay my respects to elders past and present. It's also worth noting that First Nation-led approaches naturally adopt principles and practices of community-led, place-based approaches without specifically using those terms. But thank you, Naomi and Bella. I'm really pleased to be given the privilege of working on this collaboration, evaluating this collaboration, and for the opportunity to share this with you all today. And they've really demonstrated kind of the passion and energy for this work as well, which is a testament to the quality of the collaboration, I believe. So I now get to talk to the dry theory part of all of this. But their enthusiasm definitely rubs off on me. So it's our hope that by documenting and sharing these learnings and what works for the Yarra CTC initiative, that we can contribute to the broader discussion and demonstrate the practical example of what this looks like in real life within a local context. So I'm going to share with you our evaluation approach, some of the enabling and success factors, which have already kind of been identified, but I'll demonstrate that in how that looks in our theory of change. And also show you the early findings and the evidence of genuine and effective collaboration. And as demonstrated, this initiative from the start has adopted a very sound kind of theoretical model and uses evidence-informed community-led approach. So these are all factors identified in the literature as best practice. It's also been in development for over 5 years. So this is really an excellent opportunity for evaluation as well. So we're in a good space. Yep, thank you. So systemic change. So as you heard, in addition to outcomes for families, and really irrespective of the strategies that we've chosen to focus on in the middle year focus, there was anecdotal evidence of systemic change occurring for the facilitators and agencies involved. And this really leads to a multiplying effect on the outcomes for the broader community. So, you know, really to sum it up, it's like the whole was greater than the sum of its parts. So by the very definition of place-based approaches, these are the types of changes that no individual organisation can achieve on its own. And as Bella kind of mentioned before, the collaborative kind of success is really important. So beyond the outcomes from the evidence-based parenting program Tuning Into Teens that many of you are already familiar with, and obviously, you know, we really believe in this work, we also wanted to document and understand the practice change and the mindset transformations that seem to be occurring as a result of the collaborative practice, and what about the collaboration was making it so effective. So once we had a shared understanding of the collaboration and the place-based nature of the work and the changes occurring, we decided to adopt a place-based evaluation framework developed by Clear Horizon. So this will all be shared, these resources will be shared along with the link to the webinar. So the next slide really just kind of demonstrates, again, I won't read through all of this, but to demonstrate the focus of the evaluation being collaborative practice, the systemic changes, and documenting some of the success and enabling factors, but also to show that on an ongoing basis, we're using developmental evaluation for, as Naomi's already mentioned, the effort to increase reach and messaging for families from different cultural and linguistic backgrounds. So the development evaluation is an approach used to support innovation and development of social change initiatives within complex or uncertain environments. So it means we meet regularly to reflect, learn and adapt with real-time feedback for continuous improvement of the strategies. So the next, yes, so this is just to demonstrate that the utility really of us using the place-based evaluation framework. It highlights the complexity, the long-term nature of place-based approaches. This is from, you know, one of the diagrams that demonstrates where we're sitting within the middle years. So within the context of evaluation, our current focus on systemic change is appropriate. And it's been very useful to have this kind of framework to anchor our approach and guide kind of the tools and the guiding documents that we use. So the next slide is our beautiful theory of change document. So there's a lot going on here. So again, we use the template from the place-based evaluation framework, and we worked collaboratively on this as well, refining this over several months. And there's a lot of detail. It's very detailed but a very useful description of the work and the changes that we're seeking. So I don't know if I can speak for all of us, but we definitely use this document within my team to go back to this regularly, because it is such a complex, emergent, messy space to work in. So we need to constantly remind ourselves, what are we focusing on? What's important? And you know, we do make changes along the way, but we've really used this to anchor our work. Mainly, I want to just highlight on this some of the foundational factors for enabling change, which Bella and Naomi have both spoken to. But some of the things are worth reiterating. The common agenda and shared vision is really important. Strong governance model and active partners and leadership. Flexible funding and the consistent backbone organisation, which is City of Yarra, and then the dedicated role from Relationships Australia being Naomi, with the right expertise to drive collaboration and communication. And also the use of evidence-informed strategies to address the identified risk and protective factors, such as the evidence-based program Tuning Into Teens, but also the youth survey that was used to identify the priority areas. So critical factors for achieving the intended outcomes and that really contribute to the quality of this initiative is effective collaboration and the backbone role. So the backbone role coordinates, facilitates, supports, communicates, as demonstrated by Naomi. And this is also correlating directly with evidence nationally and internationally of place-based approaches. So even in October last year, the kind of early findings of the Stronger Places, Stronger People initiative federally highlighted the two main things that were highlighted were the importance of local partnerships for collaboration and the backbone teams essential for community change. So that really correlates strongly with this as well. So, so now to our kind of evaluation, the focus groups and interviews. Oh, do we have another slide for that one? Just with an image of all.
I'll pull it up in just a second, Sandra.
Sorry,
Keep
yes,
talking and I'll pull it up.
Yeah, so so basically we've recently finished focus groups and interviews with all of the facilitators to really demonstrate the nature, focusing on the nature of the collaboration. So we defined collaborative practice. We kind of established the level of collaboration that was happening. Great, thank you. And then also, what are the elements of effective collaboration in the literature? So then through that, what we've been able to achieve is evidence of effective collaboration through genuine connection and communication. This came through really strongly, and this is leading to improved outcomes for facilitators with improved practice, and improved outcomes for families by being better connected, and also improved outcomes for organisations by collectively working on shared goals. So a shout out to Kate on my team who has put this all together into a visual. And this again, you know, we're still, so the next step will be writing all of this up for us to be able to share with you all. But I think this was a useful, I wasn't going to be able to speak to all of this. Basically the thematic analysis demonstrated kind of 3 types of social capital. As shown in the diagram. So the kind of the top section being the bonding between, you know, between the different stakeholders, and the middle part being the linking of the relationships, and then the third part being the bridging. So, you know, obviously I want to be able to explain that more thoroughly, but we won't have time today. But it's really just to show you the kind of 3 parts of social capital that are demonstrated. And all of this kind of leads to that collective intelligence, and that leads to the changing of the mindsets when we're looking at systemic change. So this is really kind of organic and therefore systemic and sustainable. All the stakeholders have a really strong sense of a shared agenda, but also agreeing on the strategy to address that, being the tuning into teens, the focus on emotional kind of connection, and that's a shared language and a shared understanding within the Yarra CTC initiative, and it permeates through the work and the organisations more broadly. So I think that's all I'll say on that for now. So, except, sorry to say, the thing we're working on now is to also experiment with social network analysis to really try and capture and visualize all of these bonds and links to show the strength of the connections and the kind of the number of connections, to really demonstrate that visually between individuals, groups, and organizations. So really just wrapping all of this together, you know, we really believe that within the context of an increased focus on collaboration and place-based approaches to address complex social problems, there's a growing interest internationally, federally, and at state levels, including an increase in community-led examples like this one. These are valuable learnings that we hope to share. So we've been able to demonstrate effective collaboration happening at multiple levels. And this takes time, but building, this kind of really demonstrates that building relationships and connection should be highly valued and ultimately does contribute to systemic and sustainable long-term change. So I think we can probably finish up there. We're running out of time, I believe. So.
Thank you so much. There was so much in that. I've got a whole heap of questions. I'm just aware of time getting short, so I'm going to pose one question, which I'm sure is, you know, something of interest to all of us. But don't worry, we won't lose the others because we'll come back to those. Okay. This isn't a very deep question either. So just to give you guys a bit of a break, you got a really great return rate on your survey. Like, I am truly and thoroughly impressed, and so clearly with somebody else, because they asked about this. How would you say you got such a great return rate, which I know is probably the lightest touch type of question given the complexity of everything else you've spoken about, but let's just give you a break and try an easy question first.
Okay, I will answer that question. I would say it was collaborative, would be my first thing. We worked with, you know, everyone in the organisation who had existing relationships with schools, went and promoted it to the schools directly. And then I would say that, you know, the first time we did the survey, we only did year 6s and 8s and got 630 something, which was pretty good. Second time we did it, we had a whole lot of schools sign up that didn't sign up the first time, because what they had seen is that there was direct activity delivery as a result of the survey, and that a lot of that credit goes to the Tuning Into Teens work, particularly partnership with schools. So yeah, building, you know, really working on existing relationships and doing something with the data and being known to do something with the data, really important.
And just to clarify, that the survey was done in school time, so
yes,
students were participating in their class time. It wasn't directly to families.
Yeah, yep. But you worked hard and leveraged the partnerships, which is why this type of work is such a charm. It's just amazing what the potential of it is. So we're going to keep banging on about this through Open, so we might have you guys back again. Did you want to say something, Bella, before we move on to?
I would also just say that we made it as easy as possible for schools. So members of the community board went and administered the survey with young people. So teachers really didn't have to know anything. They were just saying, yes, you're supportive, and handed over the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. We are going to come back to you, but I'll just hand over now to Kat and Annabelle. If you can, I just want to get my...
Okay. Is that working?
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Our second paper is entitled Ready, Set, Prep and School Ties, School Services and Community Working Together to Support Early Childhood Development and Wellbeing in Northern Marybeck. We have Kat Thorne, who's a I'm sure you're a healthy Kat, sorry, who is a health promotion officer and has worked in community health settings in metro and regional settings in Victoria for the past 8 years. Kat's worked on Ready, Set, Prep for the last 3 years and enjoys working in partnership approaches and supporting community members to build their capacity. And Annabelle Barbary is a project officer at Mary Health and commenced working on the School Ties project this year. Annabelle has come to this role as a qualified teacher working across generalist and specialist schools. Thank you so much and welcome, Kat and Annabelle.
Thanks, Mandy, and thanks, everyone. So, yes, I'm Kat and I've got Annabelle here, and we're going to be talking about a couple of projects that we're running out of Mary Health. But before we get into the details, I'd also like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the lands of the traditional owners. We're on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation here, and I'd like to pay my respect to elders past and present. And this is a picture from our organisational wrap plan, so we just wanted to share that as well. So to start off with, I'm going to be talking about Ready, Set, Prep. And so we're going to switch a bit from the previous speakers to talk about younger children and talking about when they're starting school. And I want everyone to think back to 2017, which was when the Ready, Set, Prep partnership first formed. And that was based on some identified community need. Initially, we started out in the suburb of Fawkner, which is about 15 kilometres from the Melbourne CBD. And we were really data-driven in Ready, Set, Prep, so I'll just give you some really quick statistics to set the scene. So in the 2016 census, communities in Fawkner experienced high levels of socioeconomic disadvantage, and Fawkner was ranked as the 28th most disadvantaged suburb in Victoria at that time. Fawkner is also highly culturally diverse, with almost 50% born overseas and many being newly arrived. And as shown on the screen here, the results of the 2015 Australian Early Development Census showed that 37% of children in Fawkner were starting school experiencing developmental vulnerability on one or more of those 5 domains, being social, emotional, physical, language, and communication. And that was much higher than the Moreland or now Mary Beck statistics sitting next to it at 20%. So we were also hearing things from teachers around challenges for children starting school and difficulties engaging parents. And so that really made partners come together to start talking about what could we do collaboratively in Fawkner. And so we received 4 years of funding from the William Buckland Foundation, so through philanthropy, to start Ready Set Prep. And we've got a really short video that I'm just going to show you to kind of sum up what was happening or what happened.
Ready, Set, Prep.
Ready Set Prep is a partnership between community and early years service providers to improve service quality and access, learning and educational opportunities for families and children in Northern Mary Beck. Initially in 2017, there were 5 schools in Fawkner working together. After 4 years, the Ready Set Prep partnership expanded to Glenroy and Hadfield, and by the end of 2022, more than 40 local schools, kindergartens and early years services, as well as community members, were working towards one goal. Supported by Mary Health, partners and community have worked together on 6 key activities. 1. Hosting a transition network or community of practice with Mary Beck Council for professionals to learn and work together. 2. Sharing key messages to increase information around local services and early childhood development. 3. Supporting local community leaders or champions to share information locally. 4. Running working groups to address challenges around accessing services. 5. Delivering programs that fill gaps and meet specific needs of community members. And 6. Supporting improvements to school transition processes to ensure families and children feel welcome, ready and included. Over the past 6 years, Ready Set Prep has engaged 4,700 people directly and over 17,000 people indirectly. 92% of the community members and service providers involved in making decisions for Ready Set Prep reported that working together had improved outcomes for local families. This includes delivering new and improved services, as well as increasing access to information about these services and early childhood development. In particular, community champions have shared messages with over 2,000 people per quarter.
The ideas are so relevant and applicable. The work is for the community and it involves community.
To support positive change to continue into the future, Ready Set Prep has focused on strengthening the partnership, as well as developing accessible resources and increasing community confidence, connections and leadership skills.
I have learnt a lot. I am a different person because of Ready Set Prep.
I love being a part of this team. I feel we can achieve so much working cohesively as a community.
So that was a video created by a group of young people in Fawkner, and as the video highlighted, there were lots of different moving parts to Ready Set Prep. I wanted to really focus this presentation on community as a partner and really highlight that after the 4 years of funding with the William Buckland Foundation, we then got another 2 years of funding through the Helen McPherson Smith Trust. So again, more philanthropy, and with this, we were kind of able to change how we were working a little bit. It was a time to reflect. And with this change in our funding, we were then able to look at having a community engagement officer come on board. So a dedicated bicultural worker who could really make our work much more community centred rather than just being driven by the partners and the schools. So to inform this new phase, we really looked at our governance structure. And so we had a representative steering committee, which was comprised of members from schools, early years, local services, and community members themselves. And yes, we redesigned our entire governance structure so that community was represented at all levels, so that we could make sure we had community voice and lived experience included in decision making. The picture on the right there shows that at the beginning of 2021, as we were coming into this phase with the new funding, our steering committee, newly formed steering committee, the first thing that they did was come together to look at the last 4 years of work and to design the next phase. As part of this review, they looked at all the different things on the screen. So we were looking at 28 most significant change stories we'd collected. There'd been 157 community interviews and 23 service providers were also interviewed. We looked at data again, including we now had 2018 ADC data and we had NAPLAN data. We looked at attendance data for preschool and maternal and child health checks, and we also had some video clips from children as well. So this then all led into our theory of change, which similar to the last presentation, quite a lot of detail in this. But we don't need to see too much of the details on it. Basically, our theory of change is reading from bottom to top. So down the bottom, we have our ingredients or the inputs, and then leading up to our goal and vision up the top with our activities along the way. So just to highlight a couple of parts. So we have our goal up the top that more children and families in Northern Marybeck are school ready with improved early childhood development, wellbeing and life outcomes. And to get to this goal, we have our 6 interconnected activities there that are different soft entry points to Ready Set Prep that were outlined in the video. So we're really just today going to be talking about the community-led aspects when talking about our collaborative work, but acknowledging that this did complement the work that was done by schools around their transition processes and shared professional development and learning from each other. So I'll go to that because all of our resources, key messages and local solutions that were part of Ready Set Prep were co-designed by community members and stakeholders to address the challenges for local children and families. So one of the things that we came up with was that we had working groups to help focus in on more complex factors in the system. So these groups were made up of service providers and community members to come up with local solutions and to also have that sense of ownership. So on the left here, we have the focuses of the working group. So we were looking at having our 10 key consistent messages that would be shared across all settings. We worked together to have a school readiness workshop that was all the partners working on that. We were looking at things around school starting age, and we were also looking at key health check attendance, so particularly the 3.5-year-old maternal and child health check, as well as dental checks. So for example, this last group really involved a multifaceted approach, which is where over 40 kindergartens and schools put a box on their enrolment form saying, have you attended your 3.5 check or a dental check? They also then had a QR code. So if they ticked no on the box, families could scan the QR code and get directed to maternal and child health to be able to book in that appointment. And maternal and child health actually made their website much more simple. So rather than putting in lots of information about your child, just name, date of birth and phone number so that they could do a call back and book an appointment that way. We also had a video made that showed the friendly, smiling maternal and child health nurses and talking a little bit about what their service does so that families felt comfortable to come along. Some of the community members that were on these working groups also wanted to be involved a bit further, and so they became known as our community champions, which were a group of 10 well-connected women, all mothers of young children, and they were really passionate about the aims of Ready Set Prep in that they wanted improved wellbeing for children and families in the local area. And so one of the key things that they were working on is that they were sharing information through their networks to help get that information out about services so that community knew about it. And since they came on board, they were on board for 18 months, they shared information with about 2,000 people per quarter on average. And about 400 of these were new connections each quarter. So they had a much greater reach than we could otherwise have had. Community Champions also had reported a good relationship with Mary Health as an entry point to services. And we also had other opportunities for Community Champions as well. So some were trained up by Spectrum to become bicultural facilitators of the Parenting in a New Culture program. And they also got some information from Dental Health Services Victoria to be able to run healthy eating, oral health sessions, at the library at Storytime. So yeah, there were lots of benefits for Community Champions, and I'll share some of the other results as well that we found from it. So in terms of, with Community Champions, just going back to them, there was 89% of them agreed that they had increased knowledge of local services and abilities to be a leader, and 100% felt that the key messages shared were beneficial and that they had increased confidence to share them with others, and they felt an increased sense of belonging in their community. So because one of the key things that they were looking at was around sharing information and communication, we also looked at evaluating around our communication. And so we had increases in all the ways that we were communicating. We had more people on our WhatsApp list, particularly more people on our newsletter list. And we also had some video resources, and their views went up as well. And when we asked people about how they felt about these Ready Set Prep comms, down the bottom here, we can see that about 90% felt that it helped increase access to information and about local services, and that it had helped their family. 70% felt it had helped their family's confidence around a child starting school. We also evaluated our community-led governance, which is there on the right. Again, it was really positive, with 100% of community members and service providers who are in the governance structure, so the working groups and the steering committee, reporting that it helped better utilise resources in the community, and it helped community members to have increased knowledges of services. So we felt that this community-led structure was a really good model to use as well. The other thing that we looked at in terms of evaluation was, of course, we had the AEDC as the starting factor back in 2015. So since then, there'd been 2 AEDC data collections, and in 2018, it was positive. So we saw less children starting school experiencing vulnerability, going from 37% in Fawkner to 26%. And that was when we had that expansion. So we were able to successfully get that funding through Helen McPherson Smith Trust and expand to the 2 neighbouring suburbs, Glenroy and Hadfield, at that time, as well as changing to that community-led model. We then in 2021 had another AEDC release come out, and it was the first one that had happened since the pandemic, and I guess highlighted that it had been a really difficult time for children and families during the pandemic. So it was disheartening but not surprising that it showed that there was a higher level of children experiencing vulnerability upon starting school in Fawkner and Hadfield, Glenroy, Fawkner and Hadfield. In saying that, we've been recognised for our work, so that's the exciting bit. So we've got our community champions there on the left. In 2022, they had a high commendation at the Mary Beck Awards, and then Ready Set Prep and the wider partnership won at the 2022 Victorian Early Years Awards. So we were really happy to be recognised in this way. But we, in terms of Ready Set Prep, we weren't successful in receiving any more funding to be able to continue it as it was. However, specific components of the model were written into a COVID recovery grant, which led to the School Ties project, which is a 1-year project that I'll pass to Annabelle to talk about.
Thanks, Kat. That's great. Yeah, so I am the School Ties project officer at Mary Health, working on this particular project, which has a very broad aim to improve the educational outcomes, the health and wellbeing outcomes as well for students from foundation to grade 3 who've been impacted by COVID-19 interruptions. And I think to carry on from the Ready Set Prep initiative, this project or initiative really carries on that learning continuum from sort of transition period to the early years in primary school, which is sort of the connection to Ready, Set, Prep, building on the great work that has already been done in the transition space, and looking a little bit more at the early years within the school environment. One of the major components of the project is the Community Champions model, which has been rolled into the School Ties initiative as well, and been a great opportunity for us to have connectivity to our main stakeholders for the project. The School Ties initiative has sort of 4 main components. The Community Champions are one of those. And we also have sort of a grants program, I suppose, a small grants program that looks at trying to identify and fund school and community organisation-led initiatives, community-led projects, so projects that happen in the community, and to look at different capacity building opportunities that might exist in schools and across community members as well. Community champions aren't the same community champions that existed for Ready, Set, Prep. We have a few familiar faces, but the model and the approach and the collaboration processes that were applied to Ready, Set, Prep, we've utilised in the School Ties initiative, which has been really, really useful. And it's probably the backbone of the sort of the way we've built the School Ties initiative. With School Ties obviously being a 12-month project, there hasn't been, and with school terms sort of starting in February and ending pretty much in November, it's quite a small window for us to be operating the schools. And so it was through the Community Champions model, where we have 11 community champions, we were able to connect and do some consultations with families, parents and carers, to try and identify some of the challenges that families have been experiencing post-COVID interruptions for their children, their family as a whole, the challenges around connecting with schools. And so that was a way in which we identified a lot of the issues that have helped build the sort of foundations on which we've looked at the kind of projects that we've funded through the school-based and community-based initiatives. I've just put this up here for interest's sake, really, for people to see the sorts of issues that we identified by talking to the community and also liaising with our schools. I should have said we are a predominantly Marybeck project, but we also have a particular project happening out at Benalla as well. Obviously, for school, the challenges around COVID interruptions for children in the early years space has been that they didn't get a lot of the children didn't get to kinder very much, didn't get through that transition phase very neatly, and have that experience, and all missed a lot of their early years school time as well. So these are the sorts of things that we identified from our community and school stakeholders that were sort of challenges that they were interested in trying to address. Things like school attendance, pragmatic communication or social communication skills were challenged around, as well as a lot of our schools reported, and our families, their connection to schools seemed to have been impacted by the interruptions, with far less interaction or a feeling of being connected with schools from families, but also schools saying that they felt like they'd lost a lot of their connectivity with parents. The School Ties initiative and the sort of funding, the small buckets of funding that we had attached to the program have supported schools and families and our community organisations as well. I won't go through all of these, but it identifies the sorts of ways that the initiative has been supporting the stakeholders. We have now funded a whole range of projects across schools, community organisations and within the community as well. Some of them, and also separate to that, we've been doing some capacity building initiatives, looking at some of the areas that staff within schools have been wanting to build their skill set or try and delve a lot more deeply into some of the challenges they're having, as well as families who have identified some of their challenges when it comes to connecting with their children. And the Tuning Into Kids program has been one of those programs we've been connecting, highlighting to schools and also highlighting to families within the Mary Beck local government area, which is a nice connection between our two presentations. The School Ties Initiative has funded 14 initiatives for this year across our local schools and within community organisations. There hadn't been a lot of time to try and really consult around the nature of challenges that schools have had and families have had post-COVID interruptions. And of course, this is a very underexplored space just generally across the education sector or the health sector, or community sector. So we're sort of ahead of the game a little bit, but when we spoke to our schools and promoted the initiative, that's the sort of nature of projects that came our way and that we have been funding this year. Some of our schools just needed a bit more of a therapeutic approach within their schools. Some of them wanted to tackle literacy challenges and curriculum deficits they felt existed. Some wanted to connect more with families and so develop partnerships with parents around curriculum areas and wellbeing areas. Within our community organisations, there were obviously homework kind of projects for extracurricular projects and different projects that connected families with their children safely and also with other families in the Mary Beck area as well. Our community-led projects, we've got 3 of those, and they grew up entirely from the community identified through the community champions. And it was interesting to see the nature of interests that parents held. These projects are funded, the funding is given to community members who are working collaboratively to plan and implement these. And we're sort of supporting them as a team for Mary Health as well to advance their skills and give them some support to organise these initiatives. But I suppose it just is a nice snapshot to see what kind of interests and issues community members felt existed when they considered how COVID had impacted on their children and their learning journey and also in their family. The School Ties, I've added this slide around evaluation where we are a 12-month project, so we don't have a highly sophisticated evaluation process, but we are evaluating each activity that has been funded, and we're connecting and supporting schools especially to try and capture information as we go from our students who are obviously early years students, so techniques around engaging with students to do evaluations around the activities they've engaged in is a particular challenge, but one that we've been engaging with our schools a lot about. We're also going to be documenting case studies to see what sort of impact the School Ties funding has had and how some of the challenges that our schools and our families are experiencing might have been alleviated by the sort of supports the School Ties have been able to offer them. In terms of sustainability, I think the standout for me within Mary Health has been the community engagement model, the community champions model that has been utilised across the Ready Set Prep initiative and School Ties, and it's probably been one that has grown and matured across both initiatives. Of course, the Ready Set Prep initiative has had a number of resources that have survived and live on and are accessible to the community and to our early years providers. Videos were developed as part of that initiative as well, and the social media model around our community champions and the community services support newsletter, which is an amazing reach. That's something that still exists and something that we facilitate full school ties now. So that's continued on and has, a really good response to the sorts of things that we're promoting through that and the services that we're promoting through that as well.
And I'm just going to jump back in to just really quickly give a few lessons to wrap it up. The first one is really that supporting that community input and leadership resulted in much greater engagement and ownership with activities, and even the co-design process itself of having community members come along to workshops to be involved in creating that theory of change was really important for supporting engagement and developing relationships, and helped to have Ready Set Prep and School Ties and their messages be known and recognised in the community. We also, I think we both just highlighted that we've been looking at a range of different indicators to show if we're on track, because it's really hard when we're doing that long-term work to see change. And we also want to celebrate those small wins to help maintain momentum. And I think particularly for Ready Set Prep, being 6 years, but some of that occurring during a global pandemic, it was really helpful to help us shift and reshape the focus of the initiative. And finally, because there's lots of different activities, there's different soft entry points, and families can become engaged in ways that are the most appropriate for them. So I've just got a slide that has Annabelle's details, as well as Nazish, who's our Community Engagement Officer in School Ties. And we've also got the link and the QR code there if anyone wanted to subscribe to the monthly newsletter. But that's all from us. Thank you.
Really interesting presentation as well. Lots of thought-provoking things popping into my mind. We have got 10 minutes left, and if I can ask, Sandra, Bella, and Naomi to also put their cameras on. I'm going to start with just asking a few questions that are relevant to both presentations. Such a fabulous journey but of course in a small time, I mean, we could get to the root of the success that you're showing even in a whole day's discussion, frankly. So I would encourage anyone who's interested in exploring this topic more fully in relation to your specific questions to reach out to any of our presenters after the session. But what we've got here, I suppose I wanted to focus in on some of the engagement comments that you both spoke about and addressed to both groups. And maybe to start with you, Cash, you highlighted then some of the success around engaging the community. And I can really see, I know Marybeck is in a very multicultural area. And I was wondering if you might want to reflect on the strategies or adaptations you used in your engagement process and what you learnt along the way that worked building that level of volunteerism and that level of engagement of such a diverse multicultural community. And one that potentially, and I know Ready Set Prep was initially created to address sort of and promote greater uptake of early years education amongst a multicultural community because of a recognition that there was an issue there. So I suppose I wanted to know from you, what were some of the strategies or your takeaways about trying to build that level of momentum amongst such a diverse community?
Yeah, I think, we definitely have a very diverse and multicultural community within Marybeck. And I guess before we had a community engagement officer on board, that's when we developed a video series so that we could have a visual thing, something that didn't have written words and things like that, that community members could engage with. We then did also have some posters that were translated into some of the most spoken languages in Marybeck. But I think it was definitely when we kind of reviewed what we were doing and had that community engagement officer come on board who spoke Urdu, which is one of the most spoken languages within Marybeck. And she was able to, as part of her role, have that time to develop relationships, go out to the playgroups, go out to the kinders, go out to where families might be and talk about other opportunities. And do you know that there's maternal and child health and things like that? And she, as her role, had the time to be able to build those relationships. And then I think could recognise the people who are already out and about, those kind of natural community connectors or champions, and bring them on board and take the time to build the relationship with them as well. So it might be a regular phone call with them once a month to just check in how they're doing. So I think definitely having the time. And I think just, yeah, the skills that Nazish has as a community engagement officer to be able to relate to people has been so important in this.
And you highlighted identifying the community connectors, because some people just do this really naturally and play this role themselves, don't they? So that's quite a strategic lens to take on this, I think. Could I ask a similar question to Naomi, Sandra and Bella, in terms of, you had spoken about a youth survey. I know you were working and engaging across multiple organisations. And also I was wondering about participation from community or your program participants in terms of your strategies to build that engagement and buy-in, because clearly it's a very extensive project you've managed to sort of run out across multiple different organisations, and I'm wondering what mechanisms that you had found to be successful and what your learnings in that process were. I'm not sure who I'd ask out of the three of you, because I'm not sure whose remit that is.
I can start, and then I might hand to Naomi in terms of the work that she's done, and it's been very effective in engaging a parent body. So I think it's exactly what Kat and Annabelle were talking about in terms of relationships. It's actually relationships on the ground and going out and spending time and having opportunities in somebody's remit to do that. We have engaged, so we're pretty successful at engaging schools by just having regular contact and communication and conversations with them and responding and linking them to things that are going to be helpful. We've got a really good governance model, which is a really good connection to different organisations, and it's a very welcoming space and fun space often, which is fabulous. And then in terms of young people and parents, we really think about co-design with young people and ensuring that we get really strong representation across the community for what we're doing, and buy-in when we're doing delivery as well. I'm going to hand to Naomi, because I think that a major success of us is we've now got a really strong platform for communicating directly with parents in Yarra of middle years young people, and she can talk to about how that came about.
Yeah, I think that's really evolved as we've built up our connections with different parents through delivering the Tuning Into Teens parents group, but then adding in the webinars as well. We're often getting, say, 300 parents sign up to a webinar, so that then they're all added into our kind of database of people that we can promote future programs to, future webinars to, that sort of thing. And I guess building up a trusted brand, because they are seeing communication about the program or the webinars through school communications, but then some direct comms directly from us, and then through Yarra promotions as well, council promotions as well. So I think it's building up a trusted brand that what we're delivering is of worth and value and can be trusted. And then I guess word of mouth between parents as well. Once a parent's done the 6-week program, they're often one of our best people for spreading the word to the next group of parents about, oh, you should really do this one. It's worthwhile. Yeah.
Relationships.
Yeah, and I'd say, like, for those of you that know Tuning Into Teens, the program, there's some foundational, I guess, key ideas in that it's all about tuning in to your young person, treating them with respect, listening, valuing connection and relationship. And those are the values that permeate how we're doing collaboration, right from collaboration with parents, collaboration with schools, collaboration across the agencies. We're kind of taking the values of the program and using that to inform everything that we do.
That's really powerful, isn't it? Let's all do the program, I reckon.
Yeah.
We've just got 1 more minute. Let's just give each of you an opportunity just to give us an update on where to now for your initiative. Like, what happens now? Can we go to Kat and Annabelle first, and then come back to you guys, so you've got a chance to think about it?
Thanks. Yeah, well, we're a 12-month project at this stage, so we're looking forward to connecting with schools as they implement their initiatives, which they started this term, and trying to have a bit of a deeper dive into their experiences and the challenges that they have, and trying to use that to shape and re-engineer some of the service provision and opportunities that exist across Mary Health and with our partner service providers.
I don't think I have anything to add because Ready Set Prep is finished, so I think it led into School Ties, and Annabelle's covered that off.
Maybe, Kat, it's more, it's just in, it's having a sabbatical right now, because I'm sure if it's a great project, it will come recreated in another form or the same form, basically.
Yeah, I like that. I haven't thought of it like that, but thanks, Mandy.
So Bella or Naomi?
Yeah, I'm happy to respond from our project. So we have our ongoing rollout delivery of the Tuning into Teens programs, webinars, that sort of thing. But I guess the big focus in terms of what's next is Sandra and her team formulating our kind of evidence behind the collaboration, the partnership, and the impact of that. I think we're taking a deeper dive into our delivery with cold communities and how we can build on our initial successes in that, but do it even better, and in stronger partnership with community leaders. I really want to chat to Kat and Annabelle about their community champions part of their project. And yeah, I think that's our kind of key focuses now, and having a developmental evaluation around that. Yeah.
That's really cool. So you continue, it's a continued innovation and development and movement. Bella, did you want to say something?
I think that that's great in terms of strengthening family relationships. Obviously, we have a whole action plan as well around school engagement and emotional well-being, and we've got a lot of activity happening in that space. They're newer spaces for us, so they're not as developed, but yeah, it's probably too much to speak about actually, but lots of partnership stuff, and we're taking learnings from what's happened in the strengthening family space, but we're also taking a really strong partnership with schools in that space as well.
Yeah, maybe another time, Bella, though. I mean, we're really interested in the partnership sort of approach of this type. So yeah, we might take that moment just to say thank you very much to our lovely presenters. Really so much food for thought. And I mean, of course, Open is a form of its own collaborative model, and I've taken a lot out of all of it, what you're doing, which I think this is the joy of this time of work. It doesn't actually matter what the focus is, although the focus is interesting, but it is the challenge of getting and harnessing everyone's momentum and joy and inspiration about change. I mean, it's all about supporting change. So thank you very, very much. Loved it. We will be preparing an event review out of this session and releasing the recording to those who have RSVP'd first, and then later on our open portal. And of course, you as presenters will send you back that information so you can use it for your own purposes. And thank you so much for your generosity in sharing your journey with us. Thank you very much.